Hey guys, good morning. I am here with Vanessa Thompson. She was the winner of our beautiful Caplo basket at Meeting of the Minds. Here you go, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
She mentioned that she doesn't win things a lot, so this is a special deal for her. We're super excited to have Vanessa with us here today. We're going to talk a little bit about business planning, but definitely focusing more on the real estate side of that. I've known Vanessa for quite some time. She worked with my wife, who's in real estate as well, a few years back, and she's been very successful in the industry. So quickly, I'll let her introduce herself, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Vanessa Thompson, and I'm with NextGen Real Estate. And I've been doing real estate now for, I believe it'll be 8 years in December.
Wow.
So it's been a while. I left the restaurant industry back. I've been working that for 15 years, and then eventually just went into real estate. So yeah.
That's great, and it's 8 years ago versus today says a lot about a realtor, because as that world grows and that industry grows more and more, the veterans are the ones that I see have really been through the ringer and been through the struggles and the fluctuations with the housing market and interest rates. So that says a lot. I'm glad that you've been in the industry and you're so successful. So I'd like to talk a little bit predominantly on the business planning side of real estate, or realtors more so, because that's something that I feel that you guys get into the industry not really having the proper foundation or education on how to structure yourself, because essentially you're a small business owner, you're an entrepreneur, right? You're out working for yourself. Maybe you have a broker that you work with, but at the end of the day, it's you doing, making all the moves, getting up in the morning, executing all of your strategies, right? So tell me a little bit about how you're structured. Are you an LLC? Are you a DBA? Like, talk about that a little bit.
So I got an LLC. I actually, like you said, kind of in the beginning, didn't really know. Like, there's not a lot of education out there about, like, you need to start out this way, especially if you're not really making like a ton of money. So you're kind of figuring out like what's the best way. And so I recently got my LLC just to make sure that I was structured properly, especially when you start kind of having more of a business, flow, I guess you could say. And so, so I got that completed. And then we, started to figure out with the tax, strategist to kind of figure out what are the things we need to be worried about, concerned about, saving, where to put, money at, stuff like that, just to make sure that, we're good with Uncle Sam, and that, we're taking care of business, but that we also understand the business side of it too, and not just the transaction side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. And I know that in today's world, it's very easy for us to find information on TikTok and Instagram, and probably where you guys are watching us now.
Yes.
But the reality of things is you really need somebody to show you the proper process of establishing an LLC and then filing through the IRS as an S corp. There's a lot of misconception there. One thing that I know a lot of realtors don't realize is that you're commissioned 100% most of the time, right? Predominantly. So it's going to be like a 1099 that you're receiving. So that brings on a lot of different challenges as an independent, but one of the most biggest ones I would say is the tax liability, right? You're going to have to pay the taxes at the end of the year, and depending on how successful you are, really dictates what that big number is going to be. And structuring yourself as a business so you can write things off, like your car, your gas, your housing setups, your open houses, and all that stuff. That really does help. So I'm glad to hear that you're structured as an LLC. Let's talk a little bit about those tax liabilities. Like, do you have a certain process that you and your family work on to maybe put a portion of your income aside for taxes, or do you have a strategy on what you write off so that you minimize that liability at the end of the year?
Sure. So me and my husband, we sit down and we were figuring, what do we need to put to the side for just our normal everyday life, and then obviously what needs to go back into the business. And definitely, like you said, saving for, either whether you pay, quarterly taxes, or you're going to pay one lump sum or whatever it is at the end of the year, then it's really trying to structure, because all that ebb and flow throughout the time is like, you might make $20,000 in a month, and you might make a couple thousand, and then, so you're just constantly kind of battling that. But I would say that us trying to like put money back into, or keeping money into an account, just kind of that staying there and growing, and just pulling what we need for every day, versus just having it all in one account and just spending it all, not realizing later on that you're like, hey, there's this bill that needs to be paid.
I feel like every realtor goes through that when they first get into the game. You have, first of all, you have to realize, like, most of the time for that first year or two, you're not going to make a lot of money. But then when you make that one big check, like, you're not used to that. So like that 20,000 can go like this, and you don't really realize that, like, well, maybe like 4 or 5 of that should have been put away. And I find that as a challenge as well with the clients that we help here at Caplo about, you know, having a better strategy on the inconsistencies of your income, because you don't have a paycheck every 2 weeks like the traditional 9-to-5 employee. And so what are some tips or tricks that you do to battle with that inconsistency? Like you said, 1 month you may make 20 grand, the next 2 months you may not make anything.
Sure.
Like, what do you do that, to help you with that inconsistency?
Yeah, so what I would say is definitely making sure on like the good months that you have, that you don't look at it as like you've got this huge bonus, like, you know, I'm gonna go spend and buy all these different things you've been waiting to buy.
Like, go to the Gucci store.
Exactly. So I mean, it's okay to take some money out and you know, maybe do some spending stuff that you've been needing, or buy something that you've been waiting for. But it's when you have those big lump sums, it does get some getting used to. When you're, you know, when you work in a W-2 job, you're just kind of like, okay, you know, you're going to make, you know, a couple thousand, whatever, every paycheck. But in this case, when you're getting a lump sum, you're kind of like, wow, you know, like, let me figure out where I need to spend this money at. So I think it's always good to like put some money to the side, whatever that is good for your family. And then that way, those months that are low, you still have that cushion somewhere, you know, versus like spending most of it through. And then when you have those low months, you're going back and there's not any money there, you know. So so that's kind of what we do, is just kind of like make sure there's always like a fund, you know, that's kind of sitting there.
That's smart.
And that way you can pull from it if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Very strategic. I know that right now I've been seeing this consistency with our realtor clients, and it's just like, it's slow right now, right? Like Houston market is, well, market across the country is being hit, but Houston predominantly, since we're here, we'll talk about that a little bit. I'd like to hear more. But I just feel like it's a time to buckle down, right? Like, and that doesn't start today. It should start in the beginning of the year. So it sounds like you guys are doing that in your household, where you're building some sort of fund to pay for taxes, pay for the you know, the unfortunate events that arise, right? The flat tires, the broken pipe in the house. And so that's great to hear that. It's very important for 1099 employees and commission employees is to save. So let's talk a little bit about Houston real estate. I'm a big fan of real estate. I always have been. Like, as you know, Erica, my wife, is a realtor. She's a broker now, actually. And
that's true.
you know, how do you feel about the Houston market right now? Because I always get like two different answers depending on the level of experience that the realtor has. Like, how do you feel about the Houston market? Is it strong? Has it slowed down? Should we be worried about the real estate market in here? Is it still a solid investment? Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I do think that everybody's feeling the slowdown. I think that's, like you said, across the board. But right here in Houston, I think that there's definitely been a slowdown because, you know, interest rates obviously is a big topic. So when people see that they've lost some of that buying power and that they can't afford as much of a home as they thought, or maybe last year when they looked into it, that it's kind of forced them to make the decision of like, okay, either I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet, pay the higher interest, and then just refinance down the line, or I'm going to rent another year, stay, you know, at whoever's house for another year, whatever it might be, and just kind of see how the market goes. But I think whoever can and can afford to buy is still buying. So I think Houston's still a great market. We still have affordable pricing, and right now there's definitely a lot of room for like negotiating. Builders right now are definitely, you know, throwing out incentives and paying closing costs. Lenders also are offering, you know, buying down interest rates, you know, helping them buy down interest rates, no down payment programs. Like, there's a lot of programs and there's a lot of things out there that I think buyers don't know. All they see is 8% interest. They're like, no, I don't want it. I'll just wait. You know, market's going to crash, whatever it might be. And that's not necessarily the case, you know. And if that were to happen, it could be years down the line. Nobody's saying that's going to be next month or something. Like, everybody hold on tight. And, you know, like, you know, you see on, like you said, TikTok and Instagram, there's always somebody, you know, saying like, oh, you know, refinance down the line or wait till interest rates drop. But when they do, there's going to be a ton of other buyers out there too, you know. So now you're fighting the competition of that. And so you kind of have to, I think for, you know, the consumer, you kind of have to figure out what's best for you. Yes, you can wait, no problem. You know, I don't push or rush anybody into buying. Hey, if you don't feel comfortable, please don't sign. I don't want you to regret it later. But, you know, at least like be comfortable in knowing, okay, I can make this payment. I've helped buy down the rates. You know, I've gotten a great deal out of a new construction home, and then, you know, kind of base it from there. And then down the line, you can refinance if you really have to. But I mean, I've seen builders right now giving out 4%, 5% interest rates. So it's out there. It's just getting, you know, connecting with a realtor that can kind of help you with that so that you can connect to a lender so that we can all educate that buyer. Because I think that's part of it is there's not a lot of education.
Yeah.
Everything's just online. Like, let me see what TikTok says.
And how do you feel about that? Because, you know, I'm first of all, you guys, if you need to buy a house, you need to go with Vanessa because she has all the tricks of the trades here. Like, that's so true. Like, we don't know what we don't know. And, you know, if you're looking for a home, especially a new construction home, there are incentives. And, you know, that 8% could go down to 6% or 5%, which is a solid rate. I think there's this huge misconception and this delusion of like, I shouldn't buy a house until the interest rates are at 2 or 3%.
Yeah,
like
that.
I can bet I'll bet my second child that won't happen again. You know, we will probably never see those rates ever again. And so people need to move on and start looking at the incentives and the strategies that are involved out there. But how do you feel about social media being such like a resource for information for everybody? You know, back in the day when interest rates were, I think my parents bought their house at like a 12% interest rate. They didn't have social media, right? They had the newspaper that probably vaguely talked about increasing rates or whatnot. And so like, how do you feel about like our generation and the generation that's behind us using social media as an outlet for information? Do you think that it's good, it's beneficial, or do you think that sometimes it's cloudy and it could lead people in the wrong direction?
So I think that you have to really look at the source, like who is the one giving the information out, because there's a lot of people that are talking about buying and they've never bought before. They're still renting, or they're taking information from their parents that may have not bought from 30 years ago.
Right.
You know, so it's like there's a lot of people who just get on and just say stuff, you know, and then people are like, oh, that's it, you know, like that's my friend and I'm gonna follow, you know, him or her, and that's it. But I think if you go to like a professional and actually hear what's going on out there, like that's really where you need to get your information from. Because a lot of times I'll talk to buyers or sellers and I'll hear what they're saying and I'm just thinking like, where do they get that from? And usually it's not like a reliable source, but a lot of times I understand like people might think like, well, they're just trying to sell me something, you know, so they're like, this is maybe why I want to hear like multiple, you know, people's opinion. But I think as far as getting information from Instagram and TikTok, there's a lot of great information. I've learned a lot. You know, I've seen, especially on like the investment side, people who are actually like buying properties, flipping properties, you know, doing in different type of investment type loans and stuff that I didn't even know were out there. So that helps me educate my clients of like, hey, like there is different ways to like buy a home that might help you. I mean, even if you don't like have a Social Security, even if you don't have your down payment, like there's usually something that you can fit in. It's just you've got to talk to a professional so that professional can guide you. And even if you're not, you know, ready right now, it's a game plan for like next year. Let's say like, hey, your credit needs this, do these things, and then let's talk again next year, you know, or hey, you've got to do these things, do those things, we'll talk next year. So not everything is like a forced buy, you know, it's just educate them, let them make their decision, and then kind of go from there.
I preach the same thing with all of these financial coaches and financial therapies that are out there, therapists, you know, that they're not licensed and they're utilizing the social media platform as a gateway to gain traction and gain followers. But the reality is they're not licensed professionals. And I would say the same thing for realtors and for those of you out there that are looking to buy, like work with a veteran realtor like Vanessa or anybody in your circle that may have the years of experience. I think until you put in at least 5 years into the real estate business, you can't honestly call yourself a realtor because you haven't been through the struggles, the fluctuations, the ups and downs of the market. And though Houston is a strong real estate market, it's still it can still be challenging, and there's still things that come up. And so, well, listen, you're amazing. Thank you for being with us today. This is something I feel like the viewers are going to find really beneficial. Enjoy your Caplo basket. Next time I want to see you in the Caplo hat. And again, if you guys need anything, follow Vanessa Thompson, follow Caplo Advisory for any further business or financial planning advice, and have a great weekend.
Great. Thank you.